The more you research, the crazier you sound to ignorant people. The system of white supremacy is designed to cater to this ignorance. It actively rewards it and strives on it. This is why those of us who know the truth must teach. African proverb. Dearly beloved Africans in America, you may not understand it now, but I'm still going to plant this seed of truth into your minds nonetheless. Because we must never underestimate the power of planting seeds of truth into fertile minds, even those that are currently mentally enslaved. African Americans, have you ever heard the term ideological subversion? It's a strategy that uses misinformation, disinformation, and fraudulent propaganda to manipulate people into acting against their own interests while unknowingly advancing the goals of those in power. It's a hidden system of control, far more subtle and sophisticated than the overt racism of Jim Crow era, and is therefore harder to recognize or to resist. The effects are profound. The reason why is essential that we Africans in America learn of it, because we are in fact the greatest victims of the most diabolical ideological subversion system ever deployed in world history. Ideological subversion is a slow mass manipulating process that uses disinformation, misinformation, and media images to gradually negatively change a targeted population in ways that are against their own collective interests, and instead in ways that serve the nefarious agendas of those who are deploying the ideological subversion system. Ideological subversion programming is very effective because those who writes the people's narratives and controls their media images literally controls their culture. People's mindset becomes aligned with the narratives written about them that they've accepted as being true. And people imitate and become those derogatory media depictions of their group that they've accepted as being their reality. For example, if you created a false narrative that a targeted population lives by a no snitching code, many of those people, upon hearing the narrative and accepting it as being true, will stop reporting crime, making conditions within their communities far worse. Therefore, those who created the false narrative that those targeted people lives by a no snitching code have negatively steered their culture without them even knowing it. Here's another example of negatively steering a group's culture by creating false narratives about them. If you create and repeat the false narrative that a targeted population is its own worst enemies, many of these people, upon hearing the narrative and accepting it as being true, will start hating and mean-mugging each other. They will become divided even if they were originally unified. This is called a self-fulfilling prophecy, a socio-psychological phenomenon wherein which people align their behaviors to fulfill what they've been misled to believe about themselves, making the false narrative, in a sense, now true. The same can be done by negatively distorting a people's media images, as a group's identity is shaped by how they repeatedly see themselves depicted in the media. People often imitate and become those repeated derogatory media depictions of their group that they have accepted as being their true reality. By hiring actors who are members of a particular group to dress and behave in a derogatory manner within movies and TV shows, many members of that group will start repeating the behavior while insisting that it is their own creation, although it's in fact not. This hidden social science is called negative media social engineering. Often what many people believe are their own thoughts, opinions, ways of dressing, and even what they call their own swagger are actually the results created by external forces without them even knowing it. It is a human vulnerability that can be done to any targeted group. This is what is meant by the saying, those who writes the people's narratives and controls their people's media images literally controls their culture. It's through these hidden social sciences that ideological subversion systems can be deployed to negatively change a targeted population. It changes the collective group minds of a targeted population to such a degree that they're not able to come together in the interest of liberating themselves from the system that oppresses them. These negative changes are so gradually achieved that the targeted population doesn't notice it's happening until their culture has been turned totally upside down. We African Americans are the unknowing victims of the most elaborate deployed ideological subversion system in world history. We Africans in America are also more susceptible to ideological subversion programming because people who have been stripped of their true identity and culture are more susceptible, as has happened to us as a result of the enslavement of our ancestors. White oppressive forces have exploitingly weaponized this fact against us. This is not a silly conspiracy theory. The fact that an ideological subversion system has been deployed against the entire African American culture is easily seen. All you have to do is open your eyes, be observant, and simply look at the facts as they truly are. During the 1960s, African Americans unanimously agreed that white oppressive forces are in fact our worst enemies. Today, millions are now insisting that we're our worst enemies. During the 1960s, the unified protest demonstrated by African Americans was unprecedented. It still remains unrivaled by any other group in U.S. history. Today, to the contrary, African Americans are now more divided than at any previous time in U.S. history. We used to call ourselves brothers and sisters, and we called our evil oppressors crackers. Today, we're calling ourselves by the N word and the B word, and while calling our oppressors white people. Clearly, we're respecting ourselves lesser, and we're respecting them much more. Furthermore, during the 1960s, when we call ourselves brothers and sisters, this had a profound unifying effect upon our culture. Today, calling ourselves by the N word and the B word has a dividing effect on our culture. All of these noted changes within the African American culture are not coincidences. They are the results of carefully engineered. Our collective condition has been shifted and has been designed to benefit white supremacy. Any major cultural changes that benefits the oppressive system is always by deliberate design. We also used to call men like Malcolm X and Dr. King our heroes. Today we're calling actors and athletes and rappers who gets on global media platforms using the N-word and perpetuating the worst stereotypes about our racial group. These are who we're calling heroes. They changed our definition of what are black heroes in order to remove the ideology of black liberation from our collective psyche. This is why during the 1960s, most African Americans were demanding liberation. Today, most only yearns for a comfortable position within the system of white supremacy. It's also why we changed from demanding black liberation to now many of us are saying, man, I don't want to hear about that black liberation crap. Get out here with that crap. That is a programmed response. This ideological subversion system is how they neutralize the Black Power movement. Rather than using visible violence or laws like those under Jim Crow, the white power structure began using psychological warfare tactics that we often don't recognize. It's a system so effective that it allows oppression to continue unchecked, while making many black people believe that we are the problem and not the system of white supremacy. Therefore, there's no black resistance against it. Here are a few more changes that exist amongst us that benefits all oppressors and which were deliberately achieved by deploying this disclosed ideological subversion system. The narrative that we made the N-word ours and that using it now ridiculously empowers us is a false narrative that was made by our enemies. And the truth are both the opposite on both accounts. They're both falsehood. Here's why they condition us to call ourselves by the N-word. The first step is to neutralize an alpha male. when you want to suppress the people. These are those possessing the warrior spirit. White social engineering scientists achieve this objective by conditioning black men to self-identify by the N-word. People often function according to the labels that they accept. For instance, men who call themselves thugs are more prone to violence, and women who call themselves bitches often act combatively. When black people use the N-word, we internalize a false inferior identity that reinforces white dominance. It also fuels dehumanization of each other, which makes it easier for us to harm each other. Calling ourselves the N-word instead of Africans also divides us from Native Africans. As I said earlier, this weakens our global unity and strips away the power to challenge global white supremacy. Losing that shared African identity disconnects us from our cultural foundation. Without it, we become further fragmented and we become weaker as a people, and we're easier to be molded into whatever the oppressor wants us to be. We are also now more confused about our identity than at any previous time in U.S. history. This is witnessed by the fact that we once unanimously agreed that we came from Africa. Today, many are insisting that we're not from Africa, although millions of us have taken DNA analysis that has confirmed our African identity. Here's how the belief that we African Americans are not from Africa actually benefits the white system of white supremacy. Such a belief divides us from Native Africans. When we Africans in the U.S. are divided from Native Africans, we lose our global numerical advantage, and we're stripped of all hopes of ever defeating global white supremacy. Believing that we're not from Africa also, as I said before, separates us from our unified African heritage. Without having a base identity to connect to our vast cultural wealth, over time we become further fragmented and we become weaker as a people. We can then be made into anything the white oppressors wants us to be made into. And when we Africans are divided from Native Africans, we are stripped of our numerical global advantage, and we are stripped of all hopes of ever defeating global white supremacies. They are exploiting our ignorance. We're also now more out of touch from reality than we were during the 1960s. This is witnessed by the fact that millions of us are now insisting that we are the true Jews found within a Bible written by our most ungodliest enemies and that was brutally beaten into submission within the blood-soaked minds of our enslaved ancestors. This premise is totally asinine. And for those unfamiliar with the word asinine, it means ass backwards. The fact that the Bible strongly condones the evils of slavery was in fact written by history's proven most ungodliest group of people, and the ungodly way that the Bible was brutally introduced to Africans totally disqualifies it from containing the true words of God. Furthermore, if we were the people mentioned in the book of Deuteronomy, how then do you explain the contradiction that the Bible says that those people will be freed from bondage upon reaching 400 years of captivity? But we have now been in America well over 400 years and are not even close to becoming free. This profound contradiction exists because a Bible written by history's most ungodliest group does not contain the true words of God. And a Bible brutally beaten into the blood-soaked minds of our enslaved ancestors will never now set us free. Brothers and sisters, it's time to wake up to our reality. And no. I know you're going to say it. Many of you are saying that the oldest Bible is in Ethiopia. Totally untrue. The Bible did not reach Ethiopia until 341 AD. That's 16 years after the ungodly Romans wrote the Bible in 325. Brothers and sisters, it's time to wake up to our reality. We're now more out of touch from reality than any previous time in history. The African American culture has changed 180 degrees. It's never a natural occurrence when a culture changes 180 degrees within such a relatively short time frame. These profound changes that benefits the white supremacy is by deliberate design. It's always by deliberate design whenever the oppressed culture changes in ways benefiting the oppressors. Brothers and sisters, it's time to wake up. Time for believing in dumb shit is over. One love and peace.